name is Daniel Haro, and I've lived in East Boston my entire life. It's been going on 27 years now. Going to be 28. The Greenway that connects East Boston used to be called the East Boston Greenway, but it was renamed the Mary Ellen Welsh Greenway. That Greenway starts from the waterfront side in Maverick, and it ends up all the way to the other side, to the Deer Island Marsh. The Greenway for a long time was segmented parts of public space where you still had to go through the busy road I used to go through as a kid in order to be considered the Greenway, until after there was a connection between the beach in Orrin Heights all the way to Bremen Street. Okay, so I first got involved with the Boston Youth Conservation Network through a program that was funded by Boston and Mayor Menino at the time to employ kids under the age of 18 in part of kind of part-time work throughout to help the city. When I applied, I was assigned to the East Boston Greenway, and it really was basically my first job. No, I just remember that my mom and we just drove over to Roxbury and submitted an application, and that was really it. And then if you were the right age, part of the neighborhood, then you could be selected. And I think you could just choose the 3 types of your preferred locations. And something about working on the Greenway, because it was, again, it was a reinvigorated concept by the neighborhood, because we felt like we were running out of space and we were being pushed. Yeah, so I think I joined either in the 2nd or the 3rd year of that program through the Boston Natural Areas Network. So it was the youth conservation department part of it. And so there was always a team of about maybe 7 to 10 of us with a team coordinator that was tasked with certain areas of the Greenway. I know that same efforts were done at the Kennedy Greenway in downtown Boston. That goes over to the Seaport District. But so we had, our location was here in East Boston. But one of the more enjoyable experiences was working with the local artist and creating these big murals to kind of beautify the Greenway and leave a mark for ourselves. And our team in the first year was tasked with just picking the right flowers in East Boston to represent. And we made a pretty big mural, and it's one of my first art projects that I ever did and really done with anybody. And it was a good team process. There was, a lot of sketching involved, a lot of research. I mean, it was like a good, didn't really feel like work. We didn't really know how it would turn out per se, but we all had our own flower to do, and we all kind of were able to sketch, mock up, mark, and find the right colors. And that was a pretty enjoyable experience, especially since it's still standing today. I remember back when I was working there, we didn't really have that many options of what to do in that space, since it was basically just a corridor. And we were just trying to make it as appealing, as inviting for people to use the space, to gain traction, to make it part of the community. And one of the things that I wish we had more was more community events that could take place either in Bremen Street by the library, which is one entrance of that part of the Greenway that we worked on. That was the other end. And so I think community outreach at that time was important. Now the space is kind of used mainly as just a little small commute, kind of get away from everything. It is kind of makes you feel like you are separate from the city, which is nice. You do end up at really the nice end of the Bremen Street Park, which has been heavily renovated after. So before you finished that stretch, you were kind of nowhere. Would that program still work today? I think it does, and I feel like it's it's important for people to feel connected to where they live. I feel like there's a big disconnect. Like the whole purpose of that greenway was to have East Boston connected, and it does somewhat feel that way, but only to people who really use it more for recreation. Um, which ultimately I believe that's kind of was its intended purpose. So all in it was a success. Even with the influx of new neighbors, new people that we have moving in, the ridiculous amount of apartment buildings that have been put in here. It's not so much a neighborhood, more as like fuck, man, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, man. Because East Boston's so different than how, like, who do we do it for? That's kind of the big question. Who do you think you did it for? You know, I still live in East Boston, and it's not, you know, the only reason I would use the Greenway now is because I have my dog. And that's a good socialization path for my dog. And it's nice to walk around of an area that I know very well and be like, hey, you know, I did this. Walking by my mural, it's a proud accomplishment that we did with a bunch of people. But I just was really, really happy that I was part of a place that people use. I think this was one of the few jobs where, you know, you weren't just working for a paycheck for a reason. I mean, it was kind of just a thing to do in the summer. We were getting paid. It was a job. It was one of the only few jobs you could get if you were under the age of 16. It was kind of almost like special permission. So apart from having a job, I guess some of us just took it that way. But, you know, for me, it was a space I was going to use. And it just made it was a good reason to do it. I definitely feel like I had a direct role in assisting in making that vision happen. It wasn't our vision. I mean, we were the kids in East Boston. We were, you know, viewed as the future, and it was for us. But I feel like with the changes and the amount of new buildings brought in, the demographic, the gentrification of our community on both ends of East Boston, the housing prices, people that used to live here being either not being able to afford the rent or viewing the increasing housing market and selling their homes. I feel like what I thought was East Boston changed so rapidly that I'm not really sure if I was the results of my work, who were they for? So I mean, that was a confusing time. But now that I'm older, now I'm kind of part of the group that I view when I was a kid that was coming into East Boston, but I'm still from East Boston. That was, you know, you kind of just make an impact for the place, not for the people. Does this place deserve to look nice? Does this place deserve to be accessible? I mean, the people are going to come and go. You look back and you look pictures of East Boston. You don't really see the people. You just see the old buildings. You see the old layouts. You see how the land was used. And that's part of the history of it. And this will be a part of the history of East Boston.